Hello, I'm an old guy and I do maths. Today we're going to look at the unit circle and the positive and negative values for sines, cosines and tangents when we are looking at values of degrees greater than 90. Okay, so this was a source of some confusion for me when I first saw it at school. And I've over the years sort of figured out a way of squaring this in my head and explaining it to others. So let's get into this. Okay, so here we have a unit circle sitting on an x and y axis. We've got all the points of intersection here, and I've got two diameters drawn, or more precisely, I've got four radii drawn. And we're going to start here. And we're going to consider the sine, cosine, and tangent of this angle here. And in order to do that, we're going to construct a triangle, a right angle triangle. And if we consider the tangent, that is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. So opposite over adjacent. And the values of those two sides will be positive. This is a positive value on the x-axis, and this is a positive value on the y-axis. So if you come across to here, you can see that it's a positive value on the y-axis. And so if the tangent of this angle here is this value divided by this value, tangents will be positive here. Sines. Sorry, my writing's terrible. The sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. And this is where we have to be aware of one thing. So the opposite side here is a positive value. That's the opposite side to the angle. It's a positive value. And this radius has a positive value because it has what's called magnitude. It's got a length of 1. Even if the radius were over here in what we might regard as vaguely negative territory, it still has a length and magnitude, and therefore we say that it has a positive value. So a radius drawn on the unit circle always has a positive value, and that's handy for later on. Anyway, the sine will be positive here too because we have a positive value divided by a positive value, and the same for the cosine, which is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The adjacent side here is this, the hypotenuse is positive. Positive divided by positive gives us positive. So we say that all of these, A stands for all of these are positive here. Over here, let's do the same thing. Now, we still have a positive value for this side of the triangle. It's got a positive value on the y-axis. It's got a negative value on the x-axis. So if we're looking at the tangent of this angle, it's going to be this positive value divided by this negative value. So tangents will be negative here. Positive divided by a negative. If we're looking at the cosine, it's going to be a negative value, the adjacent, divided by the hypotenuse, which is still positive. So adjacent divided by that, that's negative, that's positive. That's going to give us a negative value. However, if we look at the sine is the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. This is positive. It's in the positive territory of the y-axis. And this, as I said before, has magnitude and is always regarded as positive. So we've got a positive divided by a positive, which means that sines are positive in this second quadrant, and that is why. Going to the third quadrant, do the same thing. Here we are looking at, if we start with the tangent, it's negative on the x-axis and it's negative on the y-axis. The y-axis is negative from here down. So the tangent of this angle is the opposite over the adjacent. Negative divided by a negative, which gives us a positive. So tangents are positive in the third quadrant. The sine, negative divided by a positive gives us a negative. The cosine, a negative divided by a positive gives us a negative. Moving on. The last quadrant. Draw in our triangle. Positive values on the x-axis, negative values on the y-axis, positive value for the hypotenuse. Okay, so let's start with a tangent. Opposite over adjacent. The opposite is negative. The adjacent is positive. Negative divided by positive gives us a negative. Tangents are negative here. The sine, negative, opposite, divided by the hypotenuse. Negative divided by positive gives us negative. What are we left with? Well, the cosine. And the cosine is the adjacent. So this length here, which is positive on the x-axis, this value is positive, and this is positive. Adjacent over hypotenuse means that cosines are positive in the fourth quadrant. So the rule is that everything is positive here. Sines are the only thing that are positive here, between 90 and 180, or between pi on 2 and pi. Tangents are the only things that are positive here. This is between pi and 3 pi on 2, 270 degrees. And cosines are the only things that are positive here in the fourth quadrant, between 270 and 360 degrees, 3 pi on 2 and 2 pi. And there are various ways of remembering this. I think the polite form is CAST, C-A-S-T. There's another acronym that might get me thrown off YouTube, so we'll just say it's ASTC, and you may be aware of that. So generally it's one of those two little ways of remembering it, and what you've just seen is the reasons for that, why they are so. I hope that's helpful, and I hope that's increased your understanding of the unit circle. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. Bye.